The most common mistake that people make when it comes to their Clifton Strengths or StrengthsFinder results is that they think that the assessment gives them their strengths. They look at their results and they see words like achiever or strategic, restorative, and woo, and they think, well, those must be my strengths. And it totally makes sense. With words like Clifton Strengths and StrengthsFinder, it makes sense that you would think, well, this tool has found my strengths. But that's not quite right. So what I want to do is I want to talk about 4 things. Number 1, where does this come from? Number 2, a different way to think about it, which is why I'm in my kitchen. Number 3, some examples of talents and strengths. And 4, why it should matter to you. In developing the Clifton Strengths Assessment, Gallup went through decades of interviews and research, and they identified thousands of individual talents. But that was way too much. So what they did was they categorized these talents into 34 groupings of talent themes. So when you look at your results, what it's telling you is what are your predominant talent themes. And what Gallup says is to end with a strength, you start with a talent. So those talent themes are going to be clues that lead you to your strengths. In layman's terms, a strength is something that you do well consistently and energizes you in the process. Notice I didn't say something you do well consistently. It's possible there are things that you're doing well that don't necessarily energize you or fuel you while you're doing it. That could just be performance. What Gallup is looking for is your strength. Those things you do well, consistently, and energize you. So you're going to want to keep growing in that direction. If you're only looking at things that you do well but don't necessarily fuel you, you'll eventually lose steam or be discouraged over time. Gallup defines talent as a naturally recurring pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that can be productively applied. And because they're your naturally recurring patterns, they're easy for you. You feel energized when you do it, and you want to do more of it. You want to learn more, you want to grow more in that direction. I'm sure you can easily see why Gallup says that to end with a strength, you start with a talent. Think of a talent as raw material for a strength. So in this case, let's take an egg, right? An egg we'll look at as an ingredient, raw material to do something. A strength would be what you do well with this egg. It could be a recipe, right? So when we think of eggs, what can we do with eggs? Well, we could do fried eggs, boiled eggs, poached eggs, scrambled eggs, right? So we think of it and we're like, how do we use this, right? But what if we take it a step further and we start combining this raw ingredient with other ingredients, right? You take a talent theme, take it further, mix it with other talent themes, which by the way is called theme dynamics, right? So when you're combining a talent theme with other ones, what if you mix that egg, that ingredient with other ingredients? What else can you do? Well, you can make an omelet. You can make fried rice. What if we think like a chef or a baker, right? So now we're starting to make other things, right? Can we start making cookies or cakes, custard, meringue, some sort of pastries, desserts? What about other things such as mayonnaise or even dough for pastas, right? You know, when we think about things like that, we're not necessarily seeing the egg in its whole, right? We don't even recognize that it's in there, but it's an ingredient that's being used to create these recipes. And these examples that I'm using of using raw material to make something else, right now we've only been talking about recipes, right? So if those recipes were strengths, what if we go beyond using the yolk or the egg white? What if we're using the eggshell or the whole egg? What if we use that egg for decorative purposes, right? Whether we decorate it, paint it, using it for non-food related items at all. Other uses for the shell or other parts of the egg that I've heard of is either fertilizer or maybe a face mask, or even leave-in conditioner? What about other possibilities that I haven't even heard of that you're probably thinking about as you watch this video? The idea that I want to convey to you is that talent, and thus talent themes, and what you're seeing in your reports is only the beginning. It's describing something. The question is, how do you express it? How do you use it in your life? And how do you turn that and use them as strengths? Let's look at some examples of talents and strengths. So if we look at the talent theme, empathy, people that are especially talented at the empathy talent theme can sense other people's feelings, whether by imagining their lives or scenarios in their lives. So what are some strengths that somebody with the empathy talent theme could have, right? Maybe they are attentive listeners, or they're good at consoling people who are going through a difficult situation. Maybe they're conscientious caregivers, right? So on the surface, kind of like the obvious, what can I do with the egg? What can I do with empathy? The examples we're giving are pretty obviously empathetic. But what if we go a little deeper to examples that aren't so obvious? What if somebody uses empathy to make themselves a relentless investigator, right? So what I'm thinking is somebody who's using empathy to drive their focus and their determination in trying to either solve a problem or coming up with a solution. So I'm thinking like a detective. Maybe they're empathizing with somebody that they consider a victim and they're trying to get to the bottom of a case, or a doctor or a nurse, right? That they are empathizing with their patient, and that's what drives them to be so focused as to coming up for the right remedy for their patient. So sometimes that talent, again, could be raw material as to the motivation behind something. What about a completely different talent theme like ideation? People that are especially talented in the ideation talent theme are fascinated by ideas. They're especially adept at finding connections in things that seem like disparate phenomena. So again, just looking at the surface, maybe somebody with ideation is great at brainstorming, or maybe they're really adept at identifying untapped resources. Maybe they're considered to be very innovative or risk takers, right? They're willing to take chances on ideas that other people never even considered. Again, those are looking at examples of how somebody can use ideation on the surface. But what if we dig a little deeper, something that's not as obvious? What if somebody uses ideation to be an inspiring speaker? What if they're able to inspire others by talking about ideas that others never even considered, right? Introducing new possibilities and giving other people inspiration or hope. So there are 3 major points that I want to stress when it comes to your talents and your strengths. The first is that when you look at your results and you find out your predominant talent themes, those talent themes are your raw materials, your raw ingredients that flavor how you do things, right? So sometimes you might look at a talent and you're looking for examples of strengths that are using that talent front and center. Sometimes it could be that you're mixing that talent in with others, and maybe how you're using that talent isn't as obvious to you. So you have to dig a little deeper. But one of the things you would find is that talent is coloring how you do something. Number 2, your talent theme combination is rare. And it could be that how you use them is so natural to who you are, you either don't see it or you undervalue it. But nobody else can see or do things the same way that you can. It could be that you're doing the same activities as someone else, but fundamentally you're approaching those activities in very different ways. Your power comes from your individuality, and it may be that your different way of doing something is what drives you to go further, take something in a different direction, and it's what's going to lead you to your success different than anyone else. And number 3, explore your talent themes to identify your strengths. As I've mentioned several times before, your results aren't your strengths. They're your talent themes that are going to point you to your strengths. And how you express those strengths is individual to you. So it's possible that as you get your results, there's somebody else that has the same talent themes as you, but how you express them into strengths is completely individual to you. 2 of you may be using empathy differently. You may be using restorative differently. So just because I have the same talent theme doesn't mean we're going to have the same strengths, and how we're using it is going to be expressed differently. So you might wonder, why does this matter? Well, imagine your next big interview or a really significant discussion that's coming up, and you need to differentiate yourself from others around you. There's a big difference between saying I'm a problem solver versus I'm a problem solver because I really focus on the details and you're able to describe the how. Or I'm good at problem solving because I'm able to bring people together from opposite groups and get them to come together and work constructively, right? So you're describing your problem solving in more of a relating way. Or maybe I'm a good problem solver because ideas are easy for me. There's a big difference between saying I'm a problem solver or I'm a valuable problem solver because this is my approach. This is how I do it differently. Maybe this is the thing you need. I hope this video helped you identify the difference between your talents and your strengths. If it did and you liked it, do me a favor and go ahead and hit the like button. And if you have any discoveries you want to share or maybe some questions about Clifton Strengths, go ahead and leave me a comment below. And if you want to learn more about what to do with your results, maybe how it's relevant to you or how you can put them in action, go ahead and sign up for my free Talents in Action class. I'll put the link in the description below, but it's a free class that you can sign up. I look forward to seeing you there and in the next video. Thank you so much.